Hello everyone, this is Allegedly Caleb, and today we're going to be taking a look at Panzer Campaigns Moscow 41. This is the current WDS Game of the Week. You can currently get it for about $30 from the WDS website, and this is one heck of a game. They've been putting some really, well, I would say all of their Panzer Campaign games are really good, but this one in particular, this is the last German push to Moscow in 1941. This is a pretty iconic moment during World War II, where the Germans pushed. They got within 18 miles from Moscow, and then the Soviets pushed them back with the start of their winter offensive, which pushed the Germans really, really far back during that first winter, and arguably could be what saved the Soviet Union. So, this is the main campaign, Operation Typhoon. There's a lot of units here on this map. We've got Moscow here, right in the middle. They've got a bunch of NKVD units, a bunch of other units fortifying around Moscow. And then you even have a couple of tank units. Mostly not great tanks. You got a bunch of these T-26s concentrated around there. Throughout the rest of the map, you have large concentrations of Germans and Soviets lined up against each other. Now, this offensive was kind of doomed to failure. You'll see a lot of the German units are already really, really, not necessarily really low on men, but they're all reduced. A lot of them have a decent amount of fatigue, whereas the Soviets are mostly fresh. So already that pits the German player at a disadvantage. And you're going to see that all across the front. So here we've got Kalinin, not Kalinin. Here's the 3D mode. I don't prefer this, but actually WDS did reference that they're going to be updating their 3D graphics to make them a lot more modern looking. So keep an eye out for that. Anyway, here's up at Kalinin, where the Germans, I don't think they're going to be pushing too much further up here. Soviets definitely have grounds for a counterattack because there is 1,000 points at stake here. But the Germans are pretty well dug in up here. Anyway, and then as we move further south, some more artillery. Ooh, you got some 21 centimeter artillery guns. Those are big boys. Anyway, as we move further down, ooh, look at this. Look at that giant, those big old bridges. Keep getting distracted. Anyway, as we move further down, you've got more of a build-up around here. This is the road directly into Moscow. Wish I knew what it was called. But this is going to be heavily defended by the Soviets, and it is a target for the Germans. So you're going to find a lot of Germans concentrated around here. Now, throughout this battle, there were a lot of winter storms. So you're going to have a tough time moving your units because there's going to be a lot of snow everywhere. Anyway, here's some SS. This is Das Reich. You got more Germans, more Das Reich. You've got some Soviet Guards. That's a Guards tank battalion in late 1941. More German units back here. Lots of armor. Another big concentration. So you have that big road. You have this big road. You've got this big road. And this is where the Germans are really concentrated. They've even got Das Reich over here. Weren't they up here as well? Yeah, they were. Okay, I guess they're split up. So the Das Reich motorized division is split up. They've even got tanks. Anyway, So you've got all them. Got a Guards Motorized Division. First Guards Rifle Motorized Division right around here, guarding the entrance to another road to Moscow. And then yet another huge concentration of forces over here. You got armor, artillery, infantry, Germans in their snow uniforms, which came too late. Some more armor down here. This is the 20th Panzer Div. And then further south, along the river, which might be frozen over. Well, maybe not. But along the river, you've got more forces, less concentrated. Ooh, but you do have a huge amount of forces around Tula. Here they are. Now, I don't think these guys are going to be trying to escape quite yet. Or not escape. There's not really any German targets down here. I guess there's this one. But this one isn't even, doesn't have any points assigned to it. Anyway, that's the overall map. You do have a German victory point over here. Got them all over the place. Let's see how much Moscow's worth. There's going to be a bunch of them. 5,000. Then you've got a couple other big ones scattered throughout. Overall, oh, it actually starts at a draw. So the Germans get a minor victory with just 300 more points. Which is really interesting. That is really interesting. So they just need to take like really just a couple of these. Yeah. Interesting. It must be a lot harder than it looks, especially as the Soviets begin counterattacking, because you'll notice there's a lot more open space on this side on the German line than there is on the Russian line, which in my mind would lead me to believe that we're kind of expecting the Germans to get pushed back a lot. Interesting. Anyway, let's see what the supply values look like for the Germans. To do that, you go here, or maybe it's under view. Here it is, local supply values. Why do the Germans have such good supply? They all have 90. Is that just during this first turn so that they don't accidentally start without any ammo? Interesting. It should be a lot less than that. Because if we go to supply sources, I guess the Axis have so the Axis is pretty low. Their supply is pretty low. Compared to the Soviets, at least. Alright, now let's take a look at the strengths. Okay, yeah, you can see here the Soviets have a lot more strength worth than VP worth than the Axis. Excuse me. So overall, they've got 300,000 men here. Axis have a little over 200,000. They do have less guns than the Germans, which is interesting. They have more vehicles, but not that much more. And they've got more planes. Interesting. Now, what about reinforcements? Ooh, the Soviets get a lot of reinforcements throughout. Anything else that's important? Okay, yeah, you get snow conditions, so visibility is really bad. So the way I was looking at it, this is with all fog of war turned off. Let's take a look at the German perspective if we were to, say, turn fog of war back on. Okay. Suddenly, you can't see anything. Suddenly, scouting becomes so much more important. You've got no idea about the absolute tide of Soviet forces that are back here. Which kind of makes sense, because at this point, the Germans thought that the Soviets would collapse. If they didn't think so, then they wouldn't have made the attack. So they really have no idea how many more Soviets are left available, are left fighting. It's kind of crazy to look at it from that perspective. And vice versa, if the Germans can't see the Soviets, then the Soviets can't see the Germans. So the Soviets really don't know where exactly the Germans are going to be attacking from and attacking the heaviest. So that's also something interesting to consider in this game. Okay, anything else we want to look at in this scenario? Let's take a look at some of the stats generally of the Germans versus the Soviet units. We'll just take a look at a couple units just so you see the disparity. Okay, here we go. So, Soviet motorized unit, morale level D. That means they're going to be a lot easier to disrupt. Hard value 1-0. So they're really not going to be very good against armored units at all. Soft value 5-1. So they are not very heavy hitting. Soft value. So then you've got assault 10, not super great. Even the tanks, T60s, not very great. More T60s. BT5s, 3.6, not very great. You have those 45mm anti-tank guns. Those are actually pretty good for the time. Those will take out a lot of the German tanks. A mixed tank battalion. Interesting. This one has pretty high stats. They've got 23 vehicles against 30 vehicles. Wonder what kind of tanks are in that. So they're pretty... Look at the difference in those stats. 3-1, 6-1, 9 assault versus 12-1, 14-1, 9 assault. Got some cavalry units here. Recon 1, 5, 10, about the same as everything else. Here's some regular infantry. 1, 5, 10. So it seems like most of the Soviets are 1, 5, 10. You've got their sappers, 1, 5, 16. So their assault is significantly better. Some more crappy little T60s, little BT5s. Okay, so 1, 5, 10. That's generally what we're looking at for our Soviet infantry. Now let's take a look at the German infantry. This is just a normal infantry division. You got morale level B, so they're already going to be a lot more hardy in terms of their morale. They're not going to break as easily or disrupt as easily. They do generally all start lower. Excuse me. They do all generally start not fully kitted out. So your average German battalion is going to have maybe 50 less men, and then your average 50 to 80 less men than your average Soviet infantry battalion. But they've got 2 hard attack, not great again, but 9 soft attack versus 5, and then 12 assault. Not actually, that's not as good. I'm used to them having 16 assault from other games. You got their pioneers, 3, 8, 16. Here's their average anti-tank gun, 37 millimeter. Not as good as the 45s. That's why when the Germans captured the 45s, they would use them pretty frequently. What about these SS units? They're morale level A. So that means they're going to be very difficult to break. Oh, this is actually the Deutschland Motorized Infantry Regiment. That's right, because they became their own division later on, but for now they're just a regiment. 8 hard attack. That's kind of crazy. 12 soft attack. That's also pretty crazy. That is more than double the soft attack of the Soviet units. 12 assault. Pretty high. Same thing for Der Führer. They've got some tanks. 7, 9, 7. The defensive 10. So those are Panzer IIIs. Those are better than most of what the Germans can bring, or Soviets can bring. Even the Stugs, these guys are pretty good. 20 soft attack, 10 soft attack if you or maybe 15 soft attack if you shoot from 2 out. So that's what the general differentiation looks like. Let's take a look at some of the guards. They're morale level C, so just a little less good compared to these. Oh, even the motorized infantry divisions from the Germans are morale level A. But anyway, the guards motorized, they're morale level C. They've got about 500 men per battalion. 4 hard attack. That's actually not bad. 4 soft attack. Interesting. They have less soft attack than your normal Soviet infantry division, and a little, or infantry battalion, and a little less assault as well. That's interesting. I wonder what makes them not as good compared to these guys. 5 and 10 versus 4 and 9. Now there are T-34s. There are, oh, here's some airborne. Okay, they've got about the same as normal infantry. But like I said, there are T-34s. There are KV-1s. Ooh, some heavy howitzers. And you're going to find those more elite types of tanks closer to where the heaviest fighting is going to be. Oh wait, we were here already. We might find... Oh no, we looked over here. Oh, what are these little guys? T-40s. Here's some T-34s. Yeah, 17 hard attack, 19 soft attack, 17 defense. Your little six hard attack 37 millimeter AT guns aren't going to dent those guys. So these are elite for the time, I would say. Got Katyushka rockets everywhere. Little T-26s. Too bad I can't find any KV-1s, but I don't want to spend too much time looking for them. So we've still got more scenarios to take a look at. So one of the interesting things about this game is they've got a bunch of different versions of Typhoon. So you do have a small version, which it's like a shortened and narrowed down version of this attack. So only 117 turns versus the main campaign, which is 421 turns. Then you've got different versions of it. You've got Operation Typhoon No Creek campaign. So you're going to have the 7th Flieger Division, one of the Germans' airborne divisions. You're going to have them participate in this operation, potentially with a drop. Then you're going to have German Max Effort and No Creek campaign, which essentially means that some of the German divisions were off map, including some of 2nd Panzer Army, few divisions further north. A lot of those units were off doing other things, and in this battle they're going to be here, including the 2nd Luftwaffe, which were a bunch of German planes that would have been able to support this battle. Don't know how effective that would have been because, again, most of this battle took place during a snowstorm, but I'm sure it'll help the Germans a lot. And then you've got German Max Effort, so no Fallschirmjägers, but you still get those other units from elsewhere. Then, let's take a look at the smaller version of Operation Typhoon, just so you know what you're getting. This is classified as a large campaign, or a large battle, not a campaign though. Also, it's all red because that's to signify that, you know what, actually, I don't know what all red. I was going to say it's to signify that it's a night turn, but it's not night. It's 8 a.m. right now in the game. Anyway, so this is all you would get to play if you do the small scenario. Now, there are a couple other ones. So, you get the Vyazma campaign, which took place in October, versus Typhoon, which took place in November. So this is a campaign that was a precursor to the Moscow campaign. At this point, many of the trees are going to be changing. Here's the map. So you can see it's a pretty big campaign. Overall, it has 93 turns, but a lot of units. The unit density is definitely pretty big. You can see the German supply is pretty low in this one, 65. And in this battle, Vyazma is your main objective, right here. So your German forces are going to be generally in a lot better place. Still pretty reduced, but at least they've got no fatigue. So just to take a look down here, for example, got much higher armored percentages. Yeah, looks like a fun campaign. And then you've got a bunch of campaigns, or a bunch of other scenarios that take place within these campaigns and after those campaigns have started. So you'll have a couple snippets. For example, let's take a look at some of these. These are 12 turn scenarios, so these are going to be pretty small. Trying to find, oh yeah, let's take a look at this one. Yeah, so this is a scenario that takes place right at the beginning, I believe. Oh, maybe not. No, this might have been into Operation Typhoon. But this is an example of the smaller scenarios. They're a lot more easily accessible, I would say, compared to the big ones. This is only 20 turns. You don't have that many units you need to move. These ones are great for playing, and you could probably finish this in an hour or two if you play quick and you know what you're doing. Anyway. Then, oh, I know why. I was looking, by the way, if you're unsure what these numbers here mean, where my cursor is, the first 4, 10, 7, that's the date, October 7th. It uses American dates, so instead of 710, like you might say over in the UK. Anyway, then 01, that's the scenario type. And then A, I don't know what A means. Oh, maybe it's just a different version of the scenario. Yeah, so it could, if it says A, it's just a different version of the scenario. Alt, those are newer, updated versions of a lot of these scenarios. That's what that means. Anyway, so you've got a bunch of different scenarios to play. I haven't counted them, but it's a decent amount. You could sit here with this game for a long time before you, and that's not even talking about playing through the main campaigns all the way through. But anyway, this is definitely a game you want to get if you're interested in the Eastern Front during World War II, and if you really like big, huge operational games that are historically accurate, where the game mechanics aren't too complex. Like, if I compare this to, say, War in the East 2, it's like that game is definitely at a bigger scale, and the counter density is definitely there, but the game mechanics are not nearly as complex as a game like that. Still takes a little bit of learning, but the nice thing about WDS games is once you learn one game system, you're going to be able to carry that game, you're going to be able to carry that into the other game systems. You're still going to have to do some learning, but you're going to be way more comfortable, say, if you learn and play Panzer Campaigns, and then you want to try the Napoleonic games. It's going to be pretty easy to get into it because a lot of the game mechanics carry over, and some of them will just begin to differentiate depending on the time period and the scale. So anyway, everyone, thank you for watching. I hope you found this video educational, and I hope it helps you make a decision on whether you'd like to get this great game or not. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.